Warning, this podcast contains explicit content and racy content. Listener discretion is advised.
Ooh, racy. And we're not talking about Top Gear either.
Or horses.
Or horses.
Or greyhounds.
Cars.
Turtles.
Turtles, yeah. Or racing cockroaches.
Races. Yeah!
Yeah! There we go. Cockroach racing. It's going to be the new big thing.
Speaking of cockroach.
Nice segue. All right, so this podcast is going to be a little bit different. We're not going to do any news stories or anything else like this. We've been actually trying to do this podcast for God knows.
About 12 months.
12 months, yeah, something like that. So I don't know how to get into it really. Giggedy.
Okay, basically, Gareth has been curious lately on. If we take it back a year, that's when 50 Shades of Grey was about to come out.
Yep.
And Gareth has been very curious in what appeals to people in the whole BDSM 50 Shades of Grey lifestyle. So he's got some questions.
Because I never read the book because it was crap. I got forced to go to the movie. It was crap.
Yeah.
And I could not see the appeal because from an outsider watching that thing, it's shit.
Yeah.
It's crap. It's like, if you watch like a sports movie and you're like, so that's how that... It's like, no.
Yeah.
There's training all the time. They don't go to parties every second night and then go, let's play a game. There's training. There's shit you don't see.
Yeah.
And 50 Shades of Grey is very much a... I'm guessing you don't see a lot of shit that actually goes on. There's a couple bits that, they allude to. But they don't actually... Sorry, I'm drinking now, so... But yes.
So, let's just get this straight. The 50 Shades of Grey fiasco is very much frowned upon in the BDSM community. Because...
Should we mention as to why, how you know this?
Maybe
Nat's back again.
Hi.
From the podcast that we did with her, however long ago it was now. But so you're from this world, really, aren't you? Yeah, you're from this world.
I'd say now I'm probably ex from that world. I would call BDSM my ex-lover. I used to be pretty heavily involved in that whole lifestyle when I was living in Adelaide. Definitely not so much in Brisbane, and definitely not so much meeting my current partner, who I've been with for a very long time. But it's definitely a lifestyle that I enjoyed thoroughly, but I don't anymore. But I'm happy to share what I've learned.
Alright, so basically, let's just start scratch, because I have a feeling, as awkward as this is going to be to actually ask you, considering...
It's alright.
I've known you for how long now?
Too bloody long. Too fucking
long
for me to enjoy it.
There we go. But it's not like, you're asking questions, so you're a drawer in it. Oh, how do you do that?
It's not
It's a
every
little
day.
bit more, as much as we don't try and...
Yeah.
Think about it. We're going to be asking things which are just basically going to have mental pictures in my head.
Yeah, because
Bex's head in your head, it's going to be...
You can't just walk up to someone on the street and be like, so you enjoy having anal beads inserted up your anus. That's not...
Okay, I'm not going to drink anymore during this podcast. If that's we're into it now.
So that's not an everyday conversation.
Really, yeah.
No, I get that. And it's very much I guess I would still call it a secret lifestyle, because people, quite often who are into that lifestyle, are typically people who, in their own personal or professional lifestyles, lack control, and a lot of people don't want others to know that life about them.
Yeah, it's not something you're not going to go, hi, I'm Gareth, I used to work at radio and I like getting anal beads and certain anus.
Exactly, yeah.
It's not something you're going to bring up in friendly conversation.
No.
Is it also because it can be viewed as quite a violent?
Yes. And I would actually say the 50 Shades of Grey is a huge part of that, because the golden rule to BDSM is what's called SSC, which is sane, safe, and consensual. And 50 Shades of Grey has literally none of that. So starting with the very basics, if you're getting into that kind of lifestyle, you need to be eased into it. You can't just be fucking chucked into a dungeon, strapped up and fucked. It just doesn't ever happen like that,
no.
And if it does... Usually they're the reports where you hear shit goes bad, people get seriously hurt.
Yep, and then that's what brings the negativity on, when really you're like, actually, hold on a second.
It's actually a really beautiful kind of lifestyle, because it's people exploring, I guess, another side of themselves that they normally wouldn't.
I think, from my lack of, this side, I think it's cool in a way, the fact that you'd be able to trust somebody so much to do some fucked up shit from the outside looking in, but you're like, cool, sweet, done, sus, no worries. Yeah, he's 16, yeah, whatever. You know, it's like it's interesting in that regard. I think I said that nicely, but the part that got me, like, because I'm basing all this on 50 Shades.
Yeah.
So
a lot of people do. So
a lot of people do. So
yeah.
this is where we're coming from. But like the last scene in that movie, which I somehow still remember, the one where basically she says, "Show me how bad it can be."
Yeah.
He shows her how bad it can be.
Yeah.
And then she backs her shit.
Yeah. So,
which to me makes no sense. Anyway, in the whole scheme of things, it's a normal thing, like saying, "Hey Nat, I want you to punch me in the face right now. Go as hard as you can, right
and
here."
And then getting mad.
Smack. What the fuck are you that for?
Yeah.
That's what it seemed like to me.
It's exactly what happened.
But that's exactly what happened. That was really fucked up.
Yeah.
Like, it was. Basically...
I consent you to fuck me as hard, or smack me as hard as you can. Why the fuck did you hit me as hard as you can?
He didn't even hit her that hard anyway.
So, he hit her with a paddle. And while paddles can actually be extremely painful if used wrong, they're typically not the ones to inflict pain. They're more like a pressure. So, the main fuck up with 50 Shades of Grey, there are so many, but the main one is she was a virgin. That's
a no-go
the
zone.
big no-go zone. You would never, ever get into the BDSM choice or lifestyle or whatever you want to call it without first having what they would call vanilla sex, which is your everyday fucking. You just wouldn't do that because
you wouldn't go, "I want to have spicy foods. Give me that jalapeno and give me all of it."
Yeah,
you know,
that's
you
right.
kind of move into it.
And Christian in the books and the movie did not respect that at all. You know, he basically.
It was all or nothing.
It was all or nothing. It's like either, and...
Well, the line he says is like, what is it? "I don't make love, I fuck."
Yeah.
It's like, if you hear that,
yeah,
you kind of go, "Hold on a minute." Yeah, I'm cool.
Yeah.
To be honest, isn't the way that 50 Shades, because I've read the books, and I mean, while they are intriguing in theory, not particularly well written, but written well enough that people can sit there and read it.
Get the idea.
Like,
It originally started as a fan fiction off of the back of Twilight.
And you can bloody see
can
it.
Really?
Too.
Yep.
Yeah.
So
I just thought it was a book that said "Oh my" a lot.
Ella is
Anastasia.
Yeah, it's really interesting. But
yeah, so originally E.L. James published that as a fan fiction. It was called Twilight fan fiction, and she published it free as what it was, and then as she got further down the line, she renamed it to 50 Shades of Grey, got picked up by a major publishing house for all of the hype that she had behind it, because this is the first book of its kind. So it's very 50-50. People are thankful in the community that it was released, because now there's a new light on it, but they're also quite upset because people coming in from the 50 Shades of Grey,
There you go.
the 50 Shades of Grey, they're not well informed at all.
No. Very much, I just want to make a point right now. We're not going to be bagging 50 Shades the whole time. Just getting into it, obviously,
but
that
giving
way.
you an understanding, especially if you're curious about BDSM, please don't start with 50 Shades of Grey. There are so many other beautiful resources and books that you can find about it. I'll probably find some books that Gareth can put in the description below, but definitely don't base your experiences on 50 Shades of Grey and think it's going to go that way, because it does not.
Yeah,
no, not every billionaire is going to try and whoop you. It's fine.
No, and that's a very... Typically you'll find that most 50 Shades of Grey, like fandom who come into it, they do expect that kind of lifestyle, the treated to everything and stuff like that. You bring your own shit to a meet or a munch or anything like that, or a dungeon meet. You bring your own shit.
Yeah.
You don't rely on some rich guy to bring, their equipment.
The Red Room or
more
whatever.
than anything else, you think about
Mm.
the risk of disease that those things can have as well, which is why, and she talks about, God help me, butt plugs and that sort of shit, vibrators. You don't ever rely on. Even in real world, you would never rely on somebody to provide you with that stuff.
See, there's a really nice thing that happens when you either go to a dungeon party or things like that, and these are strictly invite only. I mean, you can rock up to the front door and ask, but you have to know someone usually on the inside.
Yeah.
And you have to be dressed for the event. You can't just rock up wearing, streetwear. There are some exceptions where they'll actually let you go get changed inside. Yeah. And then you have to wear the correct attire, which is typically just black, But, it's definitely not... Yeah. It's
a very secret world.
So I was going to say, from that, it sounds very much like... crap, I had it just before and it's gone. The movie with Tom Cruise and Nicole Kidman.
Eyes Wide Shut.
Eyes Wide Shut.
I don't think
Have you seen that one?
No.
So basically, there's a big orgy scene in it, kind of thing, and the main part of it is the fact that Tom Cruise walks through. They're all wearing masks, and they're all kind of like,
it's an anonymous fuck party.
If you want to fuck, you go do that kind of thing, and basically you can watch and you can do that kind of stuff.
But there's no tying up. It's more of a ritualistic thing as opposed to the kind of.
So a lot of people assume when they go to like a dungeon party, and that's what I was going to say earlier. Is quite often when you go to a dungeon party, there will be vendors there, and they will actually have goods on display that you can touch, you can feel. But in nearly every corner of every fucking room of ones that I've been to, there's been sanitizing stations. Hugely strict on sanitizing. So when you're there, they'll have kind of like, I guess like, sort of like, you know, in high school when you had a prefect and they'd walk around making sure shit's okay. They've got that. It's usually called dungeon masters or DMs, and they're the ones who walk around and make sure you're following the fucking rules, because there are so many of them. You can't just walk in first time, never met anyone, and go and do a scene, or, you know, go fuck someone privately if that particular venue allows private sessions. But you really have to play by the rules, because typically if you're kicked out of one meet, you're never allowed back.
So when you say scene, do you mean like just like a
fantasy?
A thing happening, or like what's so
a scene is typically what it is called when two or more people are usually on an elevated platform or a stage, and they act out one of their fantasies. And typically this is with a pre-made group. This isn't usually people they've just met off the stage floor or you know,
interesting.
Yeah. And you know, it's a very strict place. Like there's no touching unless it's warranted. If a dom has a sub or a slave, you are not allowed to touch them unless you have actually asked permission, and even then you probably still shouldn't. You know, you wouldn't just walk up to someone else in the street and, you know, caress them or fondle them or compliment them on how good their ass looks, you know, unless you're so inclined. But you've really got to follow the rules. But a scene is typically anywhere between, say, 3 to 10 minutes of people going at it, and that can be, it's usually never intercourse. That's something I just want to say right there. It's usually never a guy fucking a girl, but it will be things like toys will be used, rope suspension, things like that will be used, but typically never actual intercourse.
So when you say dom and slave and all that kind of stuff, like what's the appeal? Is it what's the feeling as to why you'd want to go do whatever you want to me, go for gold, I don't care, obviously within the rules, but go, like, what's the I personally, and I'm not just saying this because of my upbringing or whatever, but from what I know, which obviously is not a lot, and correct me if I'm wrong, but having the whole, you know, right, Nat, you're over here, I want you to sit there. Just that. Just sit there.
Yep.
Don't do anything. Yep. Sit there.
Yep.
I'm going to watch a bear, I'm going to watch TV, you just sit there.
Yep.
What's the appeal?
So,
for lack of better words.
As I was saying earlier, I think it's more people either giving up or taking control. When I've been to these sorts of events, the people who I've met who are doms or dominants, they're the ones who typically either, it can go 50-50, it can be people who don't have much control in their personal life, you know, or they are people who are very successful within their own personal life or career, and they want to make that an erotic fantasy of them being in control in that particular situation. With being a submissive, I think it's more along the lines of wanting to be controlled and wanting to be dominated. So whether that stems from something early in childhood where, you know, you might have had either even a bit too much free reign and you know, you're never really reeled in, or even anything from being, you're just a little bit shy, but because you're in this new role, you can kind of let yourself go a bit. So it's definitely very much a personal and professional life really influences on what kind of role you want to take up. And there are a thing called switches, where they're people who both do sub and dom. And I've seen a couple of switch relationships where the person who is a dom will be the sub, and then you've got you know, like a sub-sub relationship or a dom-dom relationship. They're very rare. Becoming more common, but yeah, so it's definitely an appeal.
Is there any time, in I suppose in these scenarios where say, for example, a dom would have more than one sub, or
that's when it starts to become the harem fetish, where you've got a whole group of girls. That typically doesn't work for very long periods of time because subs can get quite jealous, and it's usually, as much as it sounds funny, the subs actually have quite a lot of control